Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Conversations Daily. I'm Alex.
And I'm Emma. We're so happy you're here with us today. Whether you're listening on your way to work, taking a walk, relaxing at home, or practicing your English during your free time, thank you for choosing to spend part of your day with us.
Our goal is simple. We want to help you feel more comfortable speaking and understanding English through natural, everyday conversations. No complicated grammar lessons. No long lists of vocabulary to memorize. Just real English, the kind you'll actually hear in airports, restaurants, coffee shops, hotels, supermarkets, and in everyday life.
Learning a language doesn't happen overnight. It happens one conversation at a time. The more English you hear, the more familiar it becomes. Little by little, you'll start recognizing words, understanding expressions, and before you know it, you'll realize you're following conversations that once seemed impossible.
And don't worry if you don't understand every single word today. Honestly, you don't have to. Even native speakers don't pay attention to every single word when they're having a conversation. Instead, they focus on understanding the overall message. That's exactly what we like you to do. Relax, listen, enjoy the conversation. Your understanding will improve naturally over time.
One thing we'd like to encourage is something called active listening. Whenever you hear a new word or expression, don't panic. Try to understand it from the situation. Your brain is incredibly good at finding patterns. The more you expose yourself to English, the easier those patterns become to recognize.
And here's a little challenge for today's episode. Don't just listen. Repeat, even if you're by yourself. If you're driving, walking, or doing chores around the house, try repeating some of the expressions you hear. It might feel a little strange at first, but speaking out loud is one of the fastest ways to build confidence.
We'll also pause throughout the episode to explain useful expressions, answer common questions, and practice together. Everything we explain will come directly from the conversations you'll hear. That means you'll learn English the same way people naturally use it in real life.
Today's episode follows Carlos, a traveler who's just arrived in the United States for the first time in several years. We'll follow him throughout his day as he goes through the airport, meets new people, checks into his hotel, orders food, and handles everyday situations that many visitors experience. If you're planning to travel, study abroad, or simply improve your conversational English, these are the kind of conversations you'll hear all the time.
So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's spend the next hour improving your English together.
This is English Conversations Daily.
Real conversations, real English, every day.
So, what are we talking about today? Well, imagine this. You've just landed in the United States after a long flight. You're excited. Maybe you're a little nervous. And now it's finally time to begin your trip. But before you can start exploring, there are a few conversations almost every traveler has to go through. You'll meet an immigration officer. You'll ask for directions. You'll take transportation to your hotel. You'll check in at the front desk. Maybe you'll stop for a coffee or something to eat. These conversations happen every single day. And by the end of today's episode, you'll feel much more confident if you ever find yourself in the same situations.
Exactly. And today we're going to do something a little different. Instead of learning random vocabulary words, we're going to follow one person's journey from beginning to end. His name is Carlos. Carlos has just arrived in Los Angeles after an international flight. We'll stay with him throughout the day as he experiences real conversations with different people. Everything you'll hear is based on situations that thousands of travelers experience every day. So don't worry about understanding every word. Just follow the story. Listen to the conversations. Pay attention to how people naturally speak. You'll be surprised how much you understand just by following the situation.
As always, we'll help you along the way. Before each conversation, we'll introduce some useful vocabulary. After the conversation, we'll come back and talk about some interesting expressions, useful grammar, pronunciation tips, and cultural notes that native speakers use every day. Then you'll get a chance to practice by repeating the expressions out loud with us. Finally, we'll replay the conversation one more time. And here's the fun part. The second time you hear it, You'll probably understand much more than you did the first time. That's one of the best ways to improve your listening skills.
One more thing before we begin. Don't feel like you have to study while listening. Think of this more like spending time with two friends who happen to speak English. Relax. Enjoy the story. If you learned something new today, that's wonderful. If you only remember one new expression, that's wonderful too. Learning English isn't about being perfect. It's about making progress, one conversation at a time.
All right, Carlos has just landed. His plane has arrived. He's picked up his backpack. Now he's walking toward immigration. Let's see what happens next.
All right, before we join Carlos at the airport, let's take a look at a few words and expressions you'll hear during the conversation. Don't worry about memorizing everything. The goal is simply to become familiar with the words before you hear them in context. When they appear in the conversation, they'll sound much more natural.
Exactly. And here's a little tip. When you're listening in English, don't try to translate every single word into your native language. Instead, try to imagine the situation. Your brain learns much faster when it connects words with real experiences instead of translations. So let's get started.
Our first word is passport. A passport is the official document you use when traveling to another country. You'll probably hear this question almost immediately after arriving at immigration. Example: May I see your passport, please?
That's probably one of the most common questions you will hear at any international airport. Whenever you're traveling, it's a good idea to have your passport ready before you reach the immigration officer. It makes the whole process much smoother.
Next we have customs declaration. Sometimes you'll need to answer questions about what you're bringing into the country. For example, do you have anything to declare?
This question surprises many travelers. The officer isn't asking whether you have luggage. They're asking if you're carrying certain items that need to be reported, like large amount of cash, food, plants, or commercial goods. Most tourists simply answer, "No, I don't."
Here's another expression you'll hear very often. Purpose of your visit. In other words, why are you visiting the United States? For example, what's the purpose of your visit?
Your answer might be, "I'm here for vacation. I'm visiting family. I'm here on business." Or, "I'm here for tourism." Simple and honest answers are usually the best.
Another very common question is, how long will you stay? The officer simply wants to know how many days or weeks you'll be in the country. For example, I'm staying for 1 week.
Notice something interesting.
I'm staying for 10 days.
Native speakers often shorten
I'm
it a
staying
little.
for 2 months.
Instead of saying, "I will stay for 1 week," they naturally say, "I'll be here for a week." You'll hear that kind of contraction all the time.
Finally, let's learn one expression you'll hopefully hear at the end of your conversation. Enjoy your stay. This simply means, we hope you have a nice visit.
It's a friendly expression. You might hear it from an immigration officer, a hotel receptionist, a waiter, or even someone you just met. If someone tells you, "Enjoy your stay," you can simply smile and answer, "Thank you," or "Thank you very much."
Great. Now you already know the key expressions you'll hear in today's first conversation. Don't worry if you forget one or two. That's completely normal. The important thing is to listen for them when they appear.
And remember, this isn't a test. Just relax and enjoy the conversation. You'll probably recognize more words than you expect.
All right. Carlos has arrived at Los Angeles International Airport. He's walking toward the immigration area. His passport is in his hand. Let's see how his first conversation in the United States goes.
All right. Carlos has just landed at Los Angeles International Airport. It's been a long flight. He's excited to finally be here. But like many travelers, he's also feeling a little nervous. Even if you've traveled before, arriving in a new country can be overwhelming. There are signs everywhere, people speaking quickly, long lines, and of course, immigration for many visitors. This is the very first conversation they'll have in English after stepping off the plane.
Exactly. The good news is that these conversations are usually very predictable. Immigration officers ask many of the same questions every day. They're simply confirming your identity and learning a little about your visit. Once you become familiar with these questions, The entire experience feels much less stressful. Today, you'll hear one of those conversations. As you listen, don't worry about understanding every word. Instead, try to answer a few simple questions in your mind. Who is speaking? What are they talking about? What information is the officer asking for? If you can answer those questions, you're already understanding the conversation.
And here's today's listening challenge. Listen for the expressions we reviewed a few minutes ago. Can you recognize them when they appear naturally in the conversation? Don't pause the video. Don't rewind. Just keep listening. Sometimes your brain understands more than you think.
And one more thing before we begin. If this is your first time listening to a conversation like this, don't worry if it feels a little fast. That's completely normal. One of the best ways to improve your English is to listen to the same conversation more than once. The first time, you might understand the general idea. The second time, you'll start noticing new words and expressions. By the third time, you'll probably recognize sentences that seemed impossible just a few days earlier. That's one of the reasons we encourage you to come back and listen again. Every replay helps your brain become more familiar with natural English.
All right, Carlos is standing in line. He's holding his passport. Finally, it's his turn. Let's listen to his conversation with the immigration officer.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the United States. May I see your passport, please?
Of course. Here you go.
Thank you. What's the purpose of your visit?
I'm here for vacation. I'm planning to visit Los Angeles, San Diego, and a few national parks. I've always wanted to see them.
That sounds wonderful. How long will you be staying in the United States?
I'll be here for 10 days. I have a return flight booked for next Friday.
Great. Where will you be staying during your visit?
I'll be staying at the City View Hotel in downtown Los Angeles for the first 3 nights. After that, I'll be visiting San Diego.
Very good. Are you traveling alone today?
Yes, I am. But I'll be meeting a friend here tomorrow morning.
Do you have any food, plants, or items to declare?
No, I don't. Just my personal belongings and some clothes.
Perfect. Everything looks good. Welcome to the United States. Enjoy your stay.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. Next, please.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed Carlos's first conversation in the United States. Even if you didn't understand every word, that's perfectly okay. The important thing is that you stayed with the conversation from beginning to end. Now, let's go back and discover something interesting that appeared naturally during the dialogue. Did you notice the immigration officer asked Carlos, "May I see your passport, please?" He didn't say, "Can I see your passport?" Both are correct English. So why did he choose may?
That's actually a question I've heard many English learners ask. I remember thinking exactly the same thing. If both words are correct, does it really matter which one we use? Will people think I'm rude if I say can instead of may? Or is there another reason?
Those are great questions. Let's make it simple. For Spanish speakers, this can be a little confusing because we often use one word, puedo, for both situations. But in English, native speakers sometimes choose can and sometimes they choose may depending on the situation and the feeling they want to create. Think of it this way. Can usually sounds more casual and conversational. May usually sounds more polite, respectful, or professional. Neither one is wrong. They're simply used in different situations.
So, let's go back to the airport. The immigration officer asked, "May I see your passport, please?" Why didn't he say, "Can I see your passport?"
Because airports are professional environments. The officer is representing the government, and part of that professionalism is using polite language. You'll hear may quite often in places like airports, hotels, banks, hospitals, government offices. It helps create a respectful tone.
That makes sense. So if I answer the officer using can, would that sound strange? For example, can I ask you a question?
Not at all. In fact, native speakers say can all the time. Let's imagine you're talking to a friend. You might say, "Can I borrow your phone for a minute?" Or, "Can I sit here?" Those sound completely natural. Between friends and in everyday conversations, can is probably the word you'll hear most often.
So it isn't really about right or wrong. It's about matching the situation.
Exactly. Let's look at a few everyday examples. Imagine you're at a restaurant. You want to sound polite. You could say, "May I have the menu, please?" Now imagine you're having lunch with your best friend. You might ask, "Can I try your fries?" Both are asking for permission, but the situations are different.
Here's another one. You're at work. You need to leave early because you have a doctor's appointment. You might ask your manager, "May I leave a little early today?" That sounds respectful and professional.
Now, let's compare that with talking to your brother at home. You might ask, "Can I use your charger?" Most people wouldn't say, "May I use your charger?" It isn't wrong. It just sounds more formal than most families speak to each other.
I think this is really helpful because many learners worry too much about making mistakes. Sometimes they're afraid to speak because they want to choose the perfect word every time.
Exactly. Here's something I'd like everyone listening to remember. If you say, "Can I see the menu?" no waiter is going to think you're being rude. And if you say, "May I have some water?" no one is going to think you're strange. Native speakers use both words every day. What's most important is communicating confidently. As you hear more English, you'll naturally begin to notice when people choose can and when they choose may. That's one of the reasons we spend so much time listening instead of memorizing grammar rules.
Actually, that's a perfect moment to remind everyone of something. Everything we're doing in this podcast is intentional. The more meaningful English you hear, the easier it becomes to recognize these patterns naturally. That's why we encourage you to listen to each episode more than once. The first time, you'll probably follow the story. The second time, you'll start noticing expressions like can and may. By the third time, you'll hear them without even thinking about grammar. That's how confidence begins to grow.
Exactly. Learning English isn't about trying to remember hundreds of grammar rules. It's about hearing real English so often that many of those rules begin to feel natural. And that's exactly what we're practicing together.
Before we continue Carlos's journey, let's practice a few sentences together. Don't worry about speaking perfectly. Just repeat after us. Ready?
May I see your passport, please?
Excellent. Now a more casual one. Can I borrow your phone?
Great job. One more. May I have the menu, please?
And finally, can I sit here?
Wonderful.
And that's a great place to pause Carlos's journey. Today, we followed him through one of the very first conversations that almost every international traveler experiences, going through immigration at the airport. Along the way, we learned useful travel vocabulary, listened to a real-life conversation, discovered the difference between can and may, and even practiced speaking together. That's already a big step forward.
Exactly. And remember, improving your English isn't about understanding every single word the first time you listen. It's about spending time with the language. Every conversation you hear helps your brain become more familiar with English. Little by little, words become expressions. Expressions become sentences. And before you know it, you'll find yourself understanding conversations that once felt impossible.
One thing we'd really like to encourage is consistency. Listening to English for a few minutes every day is much more effective than studying for several hours only once in a while. Language learning is a journey, and every conversation you listen to is another step forward.
Here's a challenge for you. Don't let today's episode be the only time you watch this conversation. Come back tomorrow or later this week and listen again. You'll probably be surprised by how much more you understand the second time. Maybe you'll notice a new expression. Maybe you'll recognize a sentence you completely missed today. That's exactly how your listening skills grow.
And don't be afraid to pause the video whenever you need to. If you like to practice speaking, pause after a sentence and repeat it out loud. That's called shadowing, and it's one of the best ways to improve your pronunciation, your rhythm, and your confidence. You don't have to sound perfect. Just keep practicing. Every repetition makes you a little stronger.
Remember, learning English isn't a race. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep showing up. Listen, repeat, practice, and enjoy the process. Every episode is another opportunity to build confidence.
If you enjoyed today's episode and found it helpful, we'd really appreciate your support. Please give this video a thumbs up. It helps YouTube share these lessons with more English learners around the world.
And if you'd like to continue improving your English with us, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're creating new conversations based on real-life situations to help you understand and speak English more naturally. Whether you're preparing for a trip, moving to a new country, or simply building your confidence, we'd love to be part of your learning journey.
And before you go, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you learning English from? And have you ever traveled to another country where you had to speak English? Tell us in the comments below. We read your comments, and they help us create future episodes based on the situations you want to practice.
In our next episode, Carlos leaves the airport and takes his first ride through Los Angeles on his way to the hotel. You'll learn useful English for talking with a taxi or rideshare driver, asking about your destination, understanding directions, and making small talk during the ride. It's another conversation you'll hear every day in real life.
Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us.
Keep listening, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Emma.
Real conversations. Real English.
Every day.